Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sharon Kardos and I have been a teacher for over 30 years. Yes, I said 30 years. So I have a few tips, tricks, insights that might help some beginning teachers or maybe even some veteran teachers. So in the first video, we talked about my #1 classroom management technique that I always talk to beginning teachers about, and that is the pause and scan. So that is a strategy that you can implement right away when you have that little undercurrent of talking going on and you're trying to find out who's doing it, or you're just wanting to make sure that when you say, open your books to page 35, that they're doing that. You're having that follow through. So today we're going to back up a little bit and we're going to talk about a progressive discipline plan. So do you ever find yourself giving warnings to the same students over and over and over again and saying, could you stop talking? Or saying, shh, could you please stop talking? Over and over and over throughout a 50-minute period or a 90-minute block. And it's always the same students, right? Or perhaps you are threatening to call their parents every day, but then you never do. Or you're going to write them a referral, but then you never do. Okay, so, and the students know you're not going to do it, right? Because after a while, you've kind of taught them that you're not going to do, that you have no follow through. So the progressive discipline plan, the point is to make sure that you are being consistent in your classroom and that you have follow through. So we're going to talk about how to implement that. You can implement it at any point in the year. It's really meant to be implemented at the beginning of the year. However, I have seen teachers effectively do it in the middle of the year at December or after spring break to get them through that last part of the year. It's just a moment to take a check yourself, check your classroom, and make sure that things are running smoothly. And if not, a progressive discipline plan is the way to go. So what is it? Well, it's a list of possible consequences that you could use in your classroom. And it doesn't mean you have to use them all. It just means they're possible. They're there. You could use them. So you want to make sure that you keep it simple. One page, not a whole gigantic long list. And even all of these, you may not have to use all of these. And don't worry, we're going to talk about what each one of these says. And this is available on my website to you for free. So keep it simple. If you're giving, like #1 says reminders or warnings, you will notice there's no numbers next to reminders or warnings because I don't really want to publish that information. I'm going to have a set number in my head, but I might need to change things up depending on what the situation is. You will also notice at the top, if you can see, there is a disclaimer at the top, and I'm going to read it to you. It says the teacher reserves the right to use any or all of the following possible behavior consequences and in any order. And that kind of protects you. So like, and the students know, if I'm doing something really bad, she's not going to give me just a warning. She could just jump straight to one of these other consequences. But it's progressive, meaning it progressively the consequences get stronger. So you can skip steps if necessary. So how do you use it? First you have to create it. And these are the ones that I have on my list, and I'll just read them to you. So I have reminders, which are fairly gentle and innocuous. I don't usually document those at all. I just give a gentle reminder. I have warnings, which I sometimes document. Conference with the teacher. I'm maybe going to pull you aside, talk to you in private for a moment. Parent phone call. Conference with the teacher and a counselor. Sometimes that helps to have that third person with you in the room when you're talking about what's going on. Usually when I do these with students, I say, so this is what adults do when we have issues. We sit down, we discuss them, we talk it out. And the counselor is here to just sort of moderate for us and maybe give us some insights if necessary. The next one says conference with a teacher and an administrator. That gets a little bit more serious than just talking with a counselor. And then the last one says a discipline referral. So this is available for free on my website, SharonKardos.com, which I will link down in the description if you're interested, so you don't have to recreate your own. Save yourself some time whenever possible, right? So how do you use it? So you've got your progressive discipline plan, you've thought it through, you've thought about what your possible consequences are going to be in your classroom, and maybe you want to include a timeout, which I don't have on here, anything of that nature. You're going to come up with ones that you know that are going to work for you in your classroom. And not every classroom is the same. And maybe your administrator, is it someone who's going to agree to one of those triads, as we call them, to sit down and talk. Maybe your school doesn't have a counselor, so that one's not going to work, and you're going to need to use a different third party. Find ones that you know that you could implement and that are going to work for you. Then you're going to publish it. So you've thought it through. Now it's the beginning of the year, or it's January after winter break, and you're going to publish it with the students in your classroom. So what that means is I'm going to post these in my room on the wall. I'm going to put them in my Google Slides. I'm going to go over them with the students. I'm going to publish it. Maybe I'm going to put it in my newsletter that goes home. I'm going to post them virtually in my Google Classroom, but it's not a secret. Okay, so I am going to publish it. And notice I didn't put any numbers on here. Like, it doesn't say how many warnings I'm going to give you, because every situation is different, right? So it just says warnings or reminders. It's kind of generic, but I know how to walk myself through those steps. So you're going to use it consistently. Don't let it just be wallpaper. If you put this on your wall and you never use it, it's just wallpaper. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are using it and you're using it consistently. When I have beginning teachers that in the middle of the year, they come to me and they say, things are not going well. And I'm like, are you sticking to your discipline plan? Lots of times I can tell you they're not. Okay, they've kind of given up. They forget about it. They're not consistent. You have to be consistent no matter what your discipline plan is. Students will respond to consistency. So don't let it just be wallpaper. Sometimes you're going to be doing these things in private with the student, like maybe the student-teacher conference is going to be private outside the door, or on your prep period, you're going to call students in for that one-on-one. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit more public. Johnny, this is your first warning. Could you please stop talking? Okay. And sometimes I might say that out loud because I don't have time to walk over to the kid, or sometimes I do have time to do it as I'm using proximity as a classroom management tool, and I'll maybe walk over and stand next to that kid and I'll maybe say it to them softly. So it's up to you, but think about it. Your goal is never to embarrass or humiliate the student. That is never your goal. And you want to be polite. You don't want to use any anger. So for example, in the instance I just gave you, let's say you're taking a quiz, somebody's talking in the back of the room, and you're going to say, Michael, I've asked you nicely. Now this is your first warning. Could you please stop talking? I said, please. And when they stop talking, I usually say thank you, but there's no anger in my voice, and I try to make it as just calm as possible. Even when I give the second warning, and sometimes my students will say, well, what happens when you get to 3? Or how many warnings do you get? And I just let them know there is no 3, but that's my personal use. Lots of times if they dare to ask the question, I do say, I don't give 3 warnings. 2 is enough, but it's up to you and what you feel like. And the reason I say this is the first warning, this is the second warning, is because they know I'm keeping count of how many times I have asked them to stop talking. And it also helps it to stick in my brain so that when I have to document it later on and I'm typing it into the computer, wherever, I'm saying, oh, I gave them 2 warnings. Or you can carry around a clipboard in some form or fashion to document reminders or warnings that are, student-teacher conferences throughout the day. So when you slack on consistency, so will they, okay? That's just like the nature of the beast. That's how students are. That's how we are. If someone's not going to be consistent with us, we're going to start to slack. So you've got to make sure that you are being consistent, whatever consequences you're writing down. And then you're going to document everything. Document, document, document. I cannot express to you how important it is that you document everything. Like I said, I don't usually document reminders, but if I'm giving students warnings at the end of the day, or the end of the period, I have a little bit of block time where I sit down and I do my documentation. Now, is that going to take time? Absolutely, yes, it is. But it's going to save me time down the road. When I'm having that parent conference or I'm on the phone with that parent, I can pull up my notes, my documentation, and I can say, this is what happened on September the 7th, and this is what students said, what I said, these were the warnings. Or I talked to your student one-on-one on this date, or I called you back on October the 1st. Don't you remember that phone call where we talked and chatted? Yeah, so the parents know that you're keeping track as well. So documentation is very important. It's also important so that when you do get to that last step where you're going to write that referral, okay, lots of times I will print out my documentation and I just attach it. Then I don't have to spend a lot of time writing referrals and talking about everything I've already done because I already did that legwork at the beginning and I've already got it all typed in. So yes, the documentation part is going to take time, but I promise you, if you do it a little bit every day, that it really doesn't seem like a lot. Okay, so just to recap, progressive discipline plan, okay, a set of steps. It's a tool to help you in your classroom. Publish it, be consistent, make sure your students are aware, and when things start to go awry, go back and just kind of check yourself and make sure that you are using your discipline plan and that you're using it consistently. I hope this video was useful for you. If it was, make sure to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel so that you'll be aware when you'll be notified when I post the next video. Thank you so much for watching.